have to do is go outside of the church for a little while and look at people and look at their lives and realize that we have a purpose. And in church, a lot of times we want to talk about the glory by and by, right? We want to talk about heaven. But the fact is we're living in the nasty now and now. And the only way it's going to get any better is if we live out what we claim to live. And not in here. I mean, we want to do right in here. But what all the more important is to do right out there. Amen. So that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to learn all that we can. We're trying to worship all that we can for the God that is above all that we are, so that we can influence everybody outside here. Amen. Amen. So today, as we learn, as we worship, as we get into God's Word, just say, hey, I'm just learning. I'm just sharpening my tools so that when I get out of here, I got something to use in my hand to reach people for Jesus. To bring the kingdom of heaven to earth. Amen. Let's do this. Ushers, if you would come forward this morning to receive this morning's offering. If you're a guest of ours, just number one, thank you for being here. And number two, we don't expect anything from you this morning. We don't expect anything. People give out of the abundance of their heart, not the abundance of their wallet. And if you're our guest, we just want you to enjoy your day. We want you to find a home here that is comfortable and people that will love you and walk through life with you. And so you just enjoy your time here today. Jake, would you lead us in prayer this morning? Yes, sir. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, Lord. We thank you for this day. We thank you for all the days ahead. We thank you for all the days in the past. We thank you for just who you are to us, Father. I pray that today, Lord, we reflect and we look back and we pause and realize what an awesome and mighty God we serve today. The King of Kings and Lord of Lords. We thank you for this day, Lord. We thank you for the opportunity to come. We praise you and thank you for the message that's going to be brought forth today, Father. Just pray that you'll bless the message this morning, Father. Pray that you'll bless and use these tithes and offerings, Lord, to build up your kingdom, Lord. Let us be good stewards of it. Let us use it for your goodness and your glory, Father. We give you all the praise and glory. In Jesus' name.
Of the goodness of God.
today, God, we have come to your house, God, with an expectation, God. An expectation not only that you want to be here, but an expectation that you are already here, God. That you were here before we got here this morning, God. Preparing the way, preparing hearts, God, to receive you. Not only were you here this morning, but you were in our homes this morning, preparing our hearts to receive what you would have to say today, God. So I pray, Lord, we would go to another level today, God. That we would hear your word in a way like we've never heard it before, God. And we would recognize that you're in the room, God. We would honor you. And out of the overflow of the things that are happening in our own life, God, praise would begin to pour out. And we would open up heaven and just pour on that praise on you this morning, God. Reveal yourself to us through your word, Lord. In your name I pray. Amen. Kids, you can be dismissed this morning. You know, I think for a long time, I think when you grow up in church, you have to kind of figure it out. What do you believe? What do you not believe in? What is church? But I think for a long time, I thought church was about, you know, this was somewhere we went. It was our regular scheduled thing every Sunday night, every Wednesday. And you know, your parents carry you to church, but they can't really teach you how to interact with God. That's something you got to figure out on your own. I mean, they can show you how they do, but you really have to just catch it. And I think for us as a church, we got to get out of the mindset of, I'm just going to go to church on Sunday. And we got to believe this, that like I'm going to be in the church every day. And then when we get together on Sunday, I'm going to take part of some kind of celebration that honors God in what we do. And when we do that, all of a sudden, Christianity becomes more than just a routine that we come and play part of. It's actually, we come in and we say, man, God has been doing so much in my life this week. When I get together with you guys, I just want to celebrate it. Amen. Church is not a burden at that point to me. It's a celebration. It's something I look forward to because all of a sudden I'm with all of my friends, all the ones that I love the most, and we're just calling on God to come down. And we're saying, you know what, God, we're just going to be here. We're just going to sing our songs. We're just going to lift you up, and we're going to see what happens. And it's always so funny when you get all these like-minded people. Worship is corporate. We're all doing it together, but it's personal. We're doing it one-on-one. God just comes down. And then what's amazing is God gives me a word to give you, but it's just the dessert of your week. Because you've gotten so much in your day-to-day study, it's like, oh, I just grasped this, and now God is revealing something else to me. And dessert is always sweeter than everything else. It's the icing on the cake. It's the end all. And it's something that you delight to do. Not something that you're made to do. Regular meals are something that you're made to do, right? But on the other side, the dessert is the thing that you get. You go, oh, this is just something I do because I enjoy it. And some of us say we do it too much. But we're all sugared up and ready to roll. But that's what I want this. That's what I want Cornerstone to be, man. It's not like we're formal and everybody's robed up and everybody's fancy. No, man, we're just a bunch of people who are normal, who live everyday lives. We come in here and we just honor God. It's just part of who we are. We just want to, it may be that the caterer shares something with me. It may be that Jeremy shares something with me. It may be that Shane shares something with me. And we're all just going, man, look what God is doing here, and here. And the uniqueness of the body of Christ is where the power is at. Because it's like you may see Scripture different than I see. And God may reveal it to you different than I reveal it to you. And the beauty of it is we can keep getting it from all different angles, and He keeps showing us something new about it. If you have your Bibles this morning, turn to Hosea chapter 1. And if you don't know where that is, it's toward the end of the Old Testament. It may not be a book you've read before. I can't say that I have probably read it for the last 5 or 6 years. Hosea chapter 1. If you don't have your Bible, where you don't want to turn to it. Because Jesus, I got it right here. It's not going to go very far. All right. Hosea is prophet. And here's what it says. When the Lord began to speak through Hosea, the Lord said to him, go marry a promiscuous woman. Okay, God. Now, hold up. Go and marry a promiscuous woman. This doesn't sound like the God that we know. But that's what He says. He says, and have children with her. Like double-layered grape cakes or raisin cakes. I read that's what that means. And I heard it means something about he indulged in pleasure. And now his daughter is Gomer, who's promiscuous, who seeks out pleasure. Isn't that interesting how God does things? But that's what I read. And so double-layered raisin cakes or double-layered grape cakes, it's like this thing of pleasure. And his daughter, of course, has a problem with this pleasurable experience. And so, now, let's get into this here. Okay, so go and marry a promiscuous woman. Now, what's interesting about this, let's talk about who Gomer really is. And not Gomer Pyle, the UFCC. I know that's what I think about too. That's not what we're talking about. It says, God says, go and marry a promiscuous woman. Now, I want you to think about this, because this really says something about her character. As far as it reads, it doesn't say, he doesn't tell Hosea it has to be Gomer. She's just the first person he chooses. Think about that. Let that sink in for a minute. God doesn't say, go and marry Gomer. He says, go and marry a promiscuous woman. And Hosea goes, Gomer. That's who it would be. It tells me something about her reputation. He says, oh, promiscuous woman. He must mean Gomer. And some of you are going, I know who I would marry if God told me to go out. No, but what it says is, it says about her reputation, she's promiscuous. Hosea is given a command to love someone who loves everybody in town. That's what it means. If you read the story, it confirms it too. He says, go love somebody who loves everybody in town. And he selects Gomer based off of her reputation of unfaithfulness. Can you imagine selecting your wife based off her reputation of her being unfaithful? How crazy is this? Her reputation precedes her. She's well known, but not in a good way. And what is interesting about it all is that Hosea has his pick, and he selects Gomer. But he doesn't just select Gomer because God tells him to. He selects Gomer to receive unrelenting love. God never told Hosea to pick Gomer, but Hosea picked her. And nobody in town had loved her like she should have been loved. She was used and abused. She was thrown out to the dogs. She was a pleasure more than a partner. That is until the day that Hosea made her his wife. And you know what she becomes at that moment? She becomes the object of true love. Because Hosea is going to love her in spite of herself. And when you look at love, it gets no better than that. It reminds me of this verse here, Romans 5:8. But God demonstrated his own love for us in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. While you were acting like Gomer, God came down in man form and died for you then. He didn't say, Jeremy, go clean up yourself, man. Go get it all together. Get it figured out. And then when you do, you can come be my child. No, he says that while you were messed up, while you were doing the things that were only pleasurable for yourself, the things that didn't think about anybody else, because we all have those moments of selfishness. It says that God sent his son and Christ died for us in that moment. And what I love about it, it's a love that isn't dependent on the other person. And some of you, that may even blow your mind. A love that it doesn't depend on. It's like, I love April in spite of anything that she can do against me. Because my love is not based on April's response to me. My love for April is based on God loving me that way. You get that? When you can love somebody that way, nothing changes. Love that depends on other people is defined by the world. Therefore, it's not love. Love that doesn't depend on the other person is defined by God, and you can do it no matter what the circumstance is. See, and that's what Hosea brings to Gomer. It's a love that sees past her past. It might just be a love that keeps no record of wrongs. A love that is patient. A love that is kind. It's the kind of love that God has for you and me. While we're still doing the things that God hates, while we're still doing the things that break the heart of God, while we are still chasing everything but God, that is the moment that Christ died for us. And we have this idea that, oh, if I can just get it all together before I come to God. But what's awesome about God is that he's loving you in your mess. Because the reality is, even if you clean yourself up some, you can't get yourself cleaned up. accept that even at your best state, you're still pretty dirty. And so that God is seeking us out then. Now, what else I realize is that people create habits in their life. They do things that are wrong, and they tend to keep doing them. You know, it's like that sin that you try to get away from, and then that guy cuts you off in traffic, and you give him 2 left turn signals out the window, and then you're going, oh, I was past that. Sorry, Hillary, I won't cut you off in traffic. Not really. But it's habit forming. Gomer continues to seek other lovers. She continues to be the way that she is. It's because she created this habit. And it's even after Hosea has married her. She's not transformed before Hosea marries her. And she doesn't even change after they have a few kids together. What does she do? She continues down her own selfish path. It's like this verse here, Proverbs 26:11. As the dog returns to its vomit, so fools repeat their folly. All of you know what I'm talking about with the dog and the vomit, right? The dog vomits over here, walks over here, goes back and eats it. It's just what they do. I don't know why. It's disgusting, but you know what? When you think about the fool returning to its folly, it's just disgusting. Oh, God, I'm laying this down. I'm quitting this. And they go over here for a little while, but then they go right back to it. Why? Because it's natural to them to repeat the bad behavior. It's habit forming. And Gomer is not exempt from that. She gets loved by Hosea, a love like she's never had before, but then trades it to go back and chase something else. It's mind-boggling for me. People, they often make a commitment to God and then they turn their back and they go right back to their old lifestyle. It's a habit that's hard to break. But you know what I love about habits that are hard to break? And, you know, when we go after God and then we turn back. Like Hosea pursues Gomer, you need to understand that God is chasing you. And He's willing to pay a price to redeem you. And you don't spend money on things that you think are invaluable. Things that you think are worthless, you don't spend money on those things. And God, it says that God gave us Christ when we were at our worst. That Christ died for us then. In other words, God had no other higher price than to give a piece of Himself. And it says in that moment that Christ, that we were messing up, that we were fouling up, that we were doing our own thing, and maybe that we were committing affairs and looking at pornography and doing drugs and chasing after all these other things that were not God. In that moment, Christ died for us, and He was willing to pay a price for us then. Why? Because His love is not based on your actions. His love is already decided before your actions ever began. And so, in that moment, He chooses to die for us. Why? Because you're not worthless. You're very valuable. And I want to show you here, we're going to flip over to Hosea chapter 3. Gomer returns to her old lifestyle. After Hosea has loved her like nobody else is ever going to love her, she goes back to her old lifestyle. And she goes back to prostituting. Why? Because as a fool returns to his folly, a dog returns to his vomit, it's all the same thing. They just keep going back to the things that are tearing them apart. Because if you live for yourself, you're going to go back to the things that you used to do, and you're going to forget the promises that God has for you, which are better than anything you can want. All right. Hosea chapter 3. Which one am I looking at? Let's go here. The Lord said to me, go show your love to your wife again, though she is loved by another man and is an adulteress. Go show your love to your wife again. She's out doing her own thing. She's in somebody else's bed. For me as a husband, it's hard to fathom this right now. Love her as the Lord loves the Israelites, though they turned to other gods and loved the sacred raisin cakes. And He says, so I bought her for 15 shekels of silver and about a homer and a lethech of barley. Now, I know you probably don't know what a homer and a lethech of barley is, but it's not worth very much. But it says, love her as the Lord loves the Israelites. Now, I want you to remove the word Israelites. I want you to love her as the Lord loves you. Though you turn to other gods and love whatever it is that's pleasurable you can put in place of raisin cakes. Love her as God loves you. And when He looks at that, He understands. He understands. Because He ain't perfect either. But what I know about Gomer is this. You know, in church sometimes I think we're too quick on people to say, okay, you got saved. Start dressing like me. Start acting like me. Start talking like me. Start walking straight line. Forget everything that you've ever been taught. Man, I used to go into Anniston High School every every week we did a Bible study there. And let me tell you, those that got saved had been programmed with their lifestyle. They had been raised a different way than I had been raised. How could I expect them in one day to turn and start acting like me when they've never been exposed to that? How can I teach them to love like me when they've never been loved like that? How can I teach them that they're valuable when their whole life they've been told they're worthless? And we expect people just to come on and just be part of this. But what I'm saying is transformation. It's a process. And you're going to mess up. You're going to mess up. You're going to make mistakes. And we have to be open to what God has for us. Daily, in order to see our lives transformed. Gomer needed to be reminded that in order to change her mind, she was going to have to renew it with God daily. Prayer and reading God's Word is transformational for us. Look, Romans 12:2. You're not conformed to the pattern of this world. Pattern indicates a repetition, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. My mind may be flawed, but every day I can renew it. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and what perfect will is. See, Gomer, it says the pattern of the world. Gomer is caught up in a pattern of the world. Patterns are repetitions, right? You just keep doing them, same thing. It's like square, square, circle, square, square, circle. That's a pattern, right? It's a repetition of a pattern. In this case, Gomer is in a repetitive behavior. She keeps doing what? Man, something that I've seen so many people do. She goes back to the same places. She finds the same men to do the same things. And when you do what you've always done, you get what you've always gotten. People say, oh, I can't seem to grow for Christ. What were you doing yesterday? What you did the day before? And are you doing today what you did yesterday? Because if you are, you're going to look exactly the same. It's like if I get up every day and I put on the same pair of pants and the same shirt, I can't go out and say, oh, I'm wearing something different today. No, you're putting those things on by your behavior. And unless you change your behavior, you're not going to change your outcome. Transformation is a process. But what's beautiful about transformation is that love, when it's injected into transformation, it is transformational. And God loves Gomer. And God He loves Gomer in the same way that He loves Israel. And it's what's making the difference. When we understand the love that God has for us, we will desire to change our behavior. Amen. We will. When you begin to understand the love that God has for you, you will change your behavior. That's why, as Christians, we always point back to the cross. Because anyone willing to go to the cross for his people must really love them. Amen. And when we can understand, when we can see ourselves in the reflection of the cross, we'll desire to be like Christ. It always is. For the Christian, no matter how old you are, no matter how many times you heard it, when you see Jesus on the cross taking the punishment that you deserve, it always reminds us that, number one, we've got a long way to go. And number two, that we're loved by God. Amen. I don't know about you, I've got a son. But if I was willing to give him and lay him down for you, I must really love you. Or if we look at it just from Jesus' standpoint, if I was willing to lay my own life down and to be persecuted, to be spit upon, to be beat, to be taken to the cross, to hang there, I would really love you. And this is what's great is Hosea, when Gomer goes out and she's in the dirty places that she's in other people's bed. Guys, I just can't imagine. I can't imagine. It's another level. It's another level of love when you can love your wife in the midst of that. Hosea chases her down. Why? It doesn't say that he chases her down so he can judge her. He chases her down so he can love her properly. Guys, this is God. This is the picture of God, what He does for us. We're out in the dirty places. We're out in the nastiness of life. And God is going to those places. And everybody says, oh, God's judging me for this. God. No. It says that He's going out there to redeem her, to pay a price for her, to love her like she's never been loved before. It's very easy to look at these stories in the Bible and forget that Hosea is a regular man. He is. Just like you and I, Caitlin. There was a guy named Hosea, and God told him to go out and look for his good woman. And he went out and he did it. He was ready with it. What God asked him to do was not a simple task. And you may say, yeah, but God told him to. Well, I wonder this. What all the things have God told you that you didn't do? If it's such an easy task just to do it every time that God tells you to do it, then what are the things that God's asked us to do that we say, no, I'm not going to do that? Oh, just go there and pray for them, man. Oh, God, I don't think that's you telling me that. Oh, go over there and serve. Go over there and do. Go over there and be. Just be present. And you say, that's probably not God. And we say, oh, man, God told him to, so it must have been easy. God did tell him to. But you know what? He still had to go through the emotional toll of the whole town knowing the reputation of his wife. You guys know some people. You know some. You know some guys that are out there, and their wife is a handful. Their wife's a pain. And they're guilty by association. I hate to say it, but we do. When we're at the ball field with them, maybe, we're at work with them, and we go, man, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's kind of like the joke that they tell about Job. You know, Job goes through all these horrible things. He's stricken with wolves. He has all these things going over him. And all these things, but God didn't touch his wife. Kind of says something about her life, the devil, okay? You know, it's like, she's a handful. She's difficult. And we know people, and you know what, you're guilty by association because, see, what it was about Hosea is that his reputation was tainted too. Why? Because you become equal to whatever you lie down with. He was just like all the rest of them. People say if you lay with dogs, you get fleas, but the reality is if you lay with a dog, you're a dog. The fleas are just secondary. Gomer doesn't stop prostituting. And you know what? I'm sure a lot of people look at Hosea and thought, you're a fool. Only a fool would stay with a woman that goes out and loves everybody in town. And if I looked at that from the eyes of God, it would be like God would be foolish to love us. But he doesn't. See, sometimes God asks you to do something for him that is emotionally draining and difficult. But in doing it, he brings about his plan. God's will for our life is not always pretty and pleasant, but it is perfect. And you know what? He'll work through us to accomplish his purpose. So we got to be willing to do whatever he says. Don't you think that the day God told Hosea to marry the well-known Gomer, he didn't have some apprehension about that? I don't know, God. This is going to be difficult. But see, when you can't understand the plan that God's telling you to do, you got to trust the planning. I don't always understand things. I don't always know why some of you have to go through the things that you go through. So when I don't understand the plan, when I don't understand the things that you have to experience, I trust that there is a God that's way bigger than me, that's on a much higher pay scale than I am, that is making those decisions, and he knows what he's going to get in the outcome. Hosea shows that God picked the right man for the job because he doesn't spend his time questioning God's plan. He simply follows it. It says, go out and marry a promiscuous woman. And he went and he found Gomer and he did it. Do you think that, you know, in Hosea's mind, do you think that was what his dream was? Let me go out and get somebody that's used up. Let me go get somebody that's broken down. Let me go get somebody, number one, that I know is never going to love me the way that I love them. And God says, yeah, that's what I want you to do. Go and love a promiscuous woman. Go and love someone who's not going to love you back in the same way you love them. Go love someone who is going to leave you lonely and brokenhearted. Because, see, Hosea gave all of himself to Gomer. But Gomer didn't give all of herself back. And that leaves you in a pretty lonely marriage. When you give everything you've got, but you don't get it back, you're left with a void. Because you've given him 100%, and that man gave you 30 back. So 70% of your life goes into it. And that was the price he paid to be faithful. And we go, God wouldn't tell you to do that. Oh, I bet he would. And I know he did. See, there are two people in this story that we can learn from. We can learn from Gomer, who we've already discussed. And then we can learn from Hosea. Because if Gomer is the representation of the promiscuous Israel, then Hosea is the representation of the loving God. And it takes a special person to be selected by God to represent his character. Hosea had to go through a lot, but he was the representation of God's love for Israel. God must have thought a lot of it to ask him to do such a thing. And sure, it was painful, but you know what? It showed the pain that God had went through. Hosea goes and he digs into the dirty, nasty places to redeem his wife. You ever watched any videos about sex trafficking? It's pretty nasty. I've heard some stories from other ministers about sex trafficking. It's a gross world. The things that happen, the places that occur, the people that lie down with one another, it's pretty bad. So I can imagine Hosea when he goes out and he starts looking for Gomer, just where he's having to go. And this is the mother of his children. It's real. We can't understand the full dimension of what's going on here just reading the story. You have to read between the lines a little bit. You have to understand that God loves you at your worst. And he has to dig into these dirty, nasty places to redeem his wife. It says that he has to buy her back. Paying redemption for something what he already owns. Why does he have to pay for her? He already owns her. She's his. But he has to go to this place and he has to pay for his wife. Look at this. So I bought her. I bought her to me for 15 pieces of silver and a homer of barley and half a homer of barley. I bought my wife back. I paid for her. 15 pieces of silver. I had to give something to get her back. And that's what God's saying is that he said, go back and buy her back. Go back and pay for her redemption and show Israel that's what I'm doing for them. Do you not think that we already belong to God, but yet he sent Jesus to pay for our sin? He bought us back at a high price, more than what we were really worth. Bought her because probably she was at a slave auction. And Hosea purchased Gomer for 15 shekels of silver and 1.5 homers of barley. And together the total may have actually equaled 30 pieces of silver, the price paid for a common slave. Barley was the offering of one accused of adultery. All these things, they go hand in hand. And the price paid to redeem Gomer is indicative of the depth to which she had sunk. Barley was considered to be a food fit only for animals and was only eaten by the poorest people. And silver, when we look at it in the Bible, it means redemption. And it said they paid 15 pieces of silver. 15 is what? 5 times 3. The number 5 symbolizes grace. And the number 3 symbolizes God. In other words, it's saying by the grace of God she was redeemed. Hosea does not go out and search for her, seek her, and bring her back when she's at her best. He doesn't sit around and wait for her to get it together before he finds her, before he purchases her and brings her home. No, this is a real love story that he finds her and loves her at her absolute worst. And he never loves her based off the love that she gives back to him. He loves her out of his choosing. And his love isn't so much based on what she's done. His love is based on who he is and who God is to him. He never loves based off what she can give him back. You know, we look at the story and we cringe for Hosea. Why? Because it's hard to fathom. Our flesh cries, leave her. She's not worth it. And she doesn't really love you. But aren't you glad that's not how God loves you? Think about your mess ups, man. They're bad sometimes. We do things that are against God and we turn around and we're like, oh, I'm so terrible for doing that. I shouldn't have ever went that way, God. But yet he loves us then and brings us back. In Hosea chapter 3, God commands her, Hosea says, go and love Gomer, who is not cheating on him as in the past. No, she's presently cheating on him. It's not like, well, I know you messed up, but we can get over that and move on. No, she's still in the bed of the enemy. He says, go love her now, while she's still in somebody else's bed. Hosea goes, it does, and it's showing love is a large, this is what it does. I want you to understand this, because we don't need to go too far before we say this. Hosea goes and loves her, showing what? That love is a matter of will. And when we direct ourselves to love someone, God tells us we must love. It can happen, and it will. That is why we're not in love anymore. Isn't a valid argument for a bad relationship or divorce. That argument assumes that love is something beyond or outside of our will. He says, go and love her, and he does. In other words, love is a choice, not a good one. Love is a choice, not a good one. It gets bad. Oh, you don't understand. My marriage is terrible. It's bad. They're leaving me. They're flirting with other people. And God says, go and love them then. Choose to love them. Because I'm choosing to love you. Most husbands love their wives because they're faithful to them. Because they see them as being beautiful. Israel is unfaithful to God. Yet God loves them in spite of their unfaithfulness. And as far as the natural man could look, Gomer and Israel looked worthless. But yet God loved them anyway. See, love is a choice. Love is a choice. I want you to remember that the prophet here experiences in the physical the same thing that is happening in the spirit with Israel. And Hosea must love her in spite of her unfaithfulness, and it says her heavy wine drinking. But you know what's great about this story is it's a real love story. A love story about loving someone even when they don't love you back. A love story about loving a very imperfect person full of flaws who keeps making mistakes, and loving someone who's not only selfish, but they're in this habit of doing things that go against you. It's a story about choosing to love. We try to dumb down love to an emotion, but true love is a choice. And we make every day a choice that we make every day. And although Gomer made the choice to be unfaithful, Hosea made the choice to be unrelenting. If your mind's already made up, then it doesn't matter what comes at you. They give you garbage, you give them grace. Your mind's already made up. You know what? I don't care what you do. I'm going to love you. I'm going to be patient with you. I'm going to be kind. You know what the hardest part of Hosea had to be with love? Keeping no records of wrong. But 1 Corinthians 13 tells us that it doesn't keep any records of wrong. So when Hosea brought her back into his house, he brought her back in without remembering her past. It sounds just like God, because it says he takes our sins and he bears them as far as the east is from the west. He forgets them. And only a God so powerful can choose to forgive. But yet he doesn't. Although Gomer chose selfish desires, Hosea chose to love. And her actions and reaction never determined his response. Why? Because he was fully persuaded to love her. And when everything cries, just leave and abandon her, Hosea doesn't. He pursues her to the dirtiest places of the nastiest decisions. And although he technically already owns her, he buys her back from her captors and takes her back into his home and loves her like she never left. Even though she's prostituted herself to many other lovers, he loves her like she's the only one. And I'm sure she feels useless because all the others treated her that way, like a slave or animal. But not Hosea, because he pays for it with a heavy price. Does she deserve it? No, not really. But that's what makes his love so great and incomparable. It's a love that has no bounds and makes no sense, yet it's so powerful it pulls the worst out of the worst situations and somehow reinstates them back as his bride. He doesn't love her keeping a record of her mistakes. He loves her as if there were no mistakes. That's the difference in forgetting someone's past. When she walked in, he didn't treat her differently based off the things she had done to him. He acted as if they had never happened. He loved her enough to give her a clean slate. And he loves her and frees her, not making her love him, but giving her free choice to choose to. And when I look at Gomer, you know what it shows me about God? That he loves broken people. You don't have to have it together. He seeks them out not to judge them. He seeks them out to love them. Let me show you another example of this here. John chapter 4. This is Jesus at the well here with the woman at the well. And Jesus says that everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst again. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life. And the woman said to him, Sir, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water. And he told her, Go call your husband and come back. And she said, I have no husband. And Jesus said to her, You're right when you say you have a husband. The fact is, you've had 5 husbands, and the man you now have is not your husband. What you have just said is quite true. What you said, this is a broken person. She's had 5 husbands, and now she's living with somebody else. She doesn't know what real love is. And Jesus is offering her what? He's not sitting there. He's not beating her down about it. He's not telling her, well, hell waits for you, lady. You've been so promiscuous. You had all these husbands. You got this boyfriend you're living with. Jesus doesn't start just calling out her wrongs. He tells her the facts. But you know what he said right before that? He said, if you'll drink from the water I'll give you, you'll never thirst again. In other words, there's life in me. But if you want to keep coming here looking for empty promises, you can. But you're not going to get anything from that. See, when you love somebody, you love them enough to tell them the truth, but you offer them life instead of death. And when Jesus found the woman at the well, she's broken. It doesn't matter. She's actually a Samaritan too, which on a cultural level, she's really forbidden to even talk to him. But what's that tell you about it? He's not worried about the bounds of man. He's crossing them to find you. And he approaches her and he loves her. And then he loves her. What? He loves her exactly where she is, and then offers her life. See, Gomer is the same way. She's broken. Most would have given up on her. But instead of giving up on her, God showed up. Do you know what? That long before Hosea came into the picture, Gomer was prostituting. So what did God do with Hosea? He loved her through Hosea in spite of her mess-ups. Hosea could see the face of God in the face of her husband. We want to focus on the character of Gomer. We want to focus on her mess-ups and mistakes. It's like the world to focus on our shortcomings. We want to blame God and accuse people of judging us. But what we see here in this world is that the world is judging you, but God is loving you to repentance. That's what he did with Hosea. I have a short video clip I want to show before I finish it. Chris, will you show that video?
One
See, he paid more than she was worth. Nobody was willing to pay for her. And then he said, he'll always be for her. He'll always be for her. See, what we've got to understand in this whole story is that you and I are Gomer. Gomer's left her husband. She's returned to her old ways. She's back in her filth. She's cheating. She's laying down with other men. The relationship is broken, and Gomer cannot go back to Hosea. So he seeks her out, and he purchases her, and he pays for her redemption. And the journey to redeem Gomer, although it's a nasty one, and Hosea has to go to the dirtiest places, he goes, and he pays for something that he already owns. And that's what God's doing for us. In marriage, there's no greater betrayal than for your wife to go give her body to someone else. Not only is it a physical act against your mate, but it's an emotional act as well. And yet we do it to God every time we choose sin over Him. We take on another lover. We leave our husbands to lay down with the world, and He keeps bringing us back, and we keep chasing other lovers. And the things that Gomer did to Hosea were downright hateful, selfish, and disgusting. The sins committed against God and her husband, they don't belong on the pages of the Bible. They don't deserve the lead role in the story. But see, it's not the mess-ups that deserve to be told. It's that Hosea loved her in spite of them. It's that Hosea went out, sought her, paid for her, and returned her to his home. In fact, he would reinstate her as a bride after pulling her from the sewer of life. That's the story that needs to be told. We're not glorifying Gomer in the way that she acted. We relate to her. We're glorifying Hosea in the way that he acted in spite of her. It says she was totally undeserving of his love, yet his love for her was fierce and unrelenting. His love for the bride his love for his bride is the story. He never let how she treated him determine how he loved her. The story's been told because it is the image of God. And his bride is unfaithful. She belongs to him, and he has to go back and buy her. And he brings her back to his home, and he reinstates her. And he's doing this all the time. It's the story of the persistent lover. It's the story of Christ. He keeps redeeming the bride in spite of her failures. And he goes and he pays what? The heaviest price. Why? Because there was never a price that was too high. You know what my next screen, please? Anyway, it's John 3:16, and many of you will know it, but it says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son," the only Son that he had, "that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life." And that's the story of the Father. He is going back to redeem his bride at the price of his very own Son. There is no higher price. And that's the kind of unrelenting love we see through Hosea in the life of Gomer. Randy, would you come this morning? It is a love that says, you know what? I'm not going to study your past. I'm going to show you your future. I'm not going to study your mess-ups. I'm going to lead you to your miracles. It's a God that comes in when nobody else is willing to pay for you. And he says, you know what? I'm about to pay it all, and I'm going to pay more than they're asking for. I'm going to pay much more than they're asking for. We're standing with you this morning. What God is saying this morning is saying no matter where you've been, no matter if you've been down in the dirt, no matter if you've been discarded by everybody else, that God is not discarding you now. He is loving you now in the middle of your mess up. He's loving you in the middle of your mistakes. And there's somebody out there, I'm sure there was a voice of the crowd that kept telling Gomer she wasn't worthy. But yet there was the whisper of Hosea that says, you know what? I'm always for you. And that's the voice of God. It's that he's always for us, fighting for us. So as we bow our heads this morning, this is the altar call, is that if you do not understand or you do not know the love of God, if you've not given your life to God, understand this is the kind of God that the world doesn't want you to see. Because if you ever see it, you won't be able to turn away from it. He's loving you in the middle of your mess. And this altar is open this morning for those who just want to come to him and say, Lord, I just give you all of my life because I realize that I'm a work in progress and I need your grace, just like Gomer needed Hosea's grace.
By your grace I
remember me, I want to give my life to God in a way like I never have before. If that's you this morning, would you lift your hand up this morning? I want to pray for you. I'm not going to call you out. Yeah, I see those hands. Yeah. Let's pray. God, we love you. We walk with you today, God, realizing that we've been redeemed at such a high price. And Lord, I just pray that the games would cease, God, and that we would love you properly, Lord. We would just commit ourselves, Lord, to constantly renewing our mind and living in the promise that you have for us, God. So we praise you today. We love you today. And we look forward to what you're going to do from this moment forward, God. We want to be a faithful bride, God. Help us to see ourselves in light of the cross and realize how much you love us and want to walk that way, God. So thank you for today. In your name I pray. Amen. So this Wednesday we continue with our Journey to Easter series. Randy will be teaching this Wednesday night, so I look forward to that. Also tonight, live group is at Brett and Lori Lloyd's house, and the menu there is soup, but we have plenty of soup, so anything to go with that would be appreciated. And it starts at 6 o'clock. Also, live group is at Randy's house tonight.
Actually, it's Sunday.
Oh, it's Fifth Sunday. Yep. Oh, well, our life group is going to meet on the Fifth Sunday just because we forgot. But it is the Fifth Sunday. I forgot all about that. And but we look forward to it. And if you want to come out to ours tonight, we'll be there. And then just be careful going out. Thank you for being here. Get involved in the church. Get involved in the movement of Christ. Amen. All right.